Isolation doesn't happen with a slammed door and a locked deadbolt. It doesn't come with iron bars or physical walls. The most effective prison is one you don't even realize is being built around you. Its walls are constructed with whispers. Its bars are forged from guilt, and the lock on the door is a key you hand over willingly. Leaving it's a symbol of love. It's a quiet, methodical process of erasure. One by one, the people who know you, the people who ground you in your own reality, are gently, lovingly, and systematically removed, until one day you wake up and realize you are completely earned. Utterly alone, a stranger in a fortress built for two, with no idea how to find the exit. Before I met Liam, my life was a rich tapestry of connections. I was fiercely close with my family, especially my older sister, Rachel. We spoke on the phone nearly every day. My friends were my bedrock, a group of women I'd known since college who were my confidants, my cheerleaders, and my reality checks. My life was full of loud, happy dinners, spontaneous weekend trips, and the easy, comfortable shorthand of deep, long-term relationships. I was known, I was seen. I was anchored. Liam entered my life like a perfect gentleman. He was handsome, successful, an architect with a calm, steady demeanor that felt like a safe harbor. He was an intense listener, and he seemed to adore every aspect of my life. He loved hearing stories about my family. He was charming and deferential. To my friends, he fit into my world so seamlessly that I never saw him as a threat to it. In the beginning, he encouraged my connections. "Call your sister," he'd say. "You always sound so happy after you talk to her." The shift was so subtle, so masterfully executed, that I didn't recognize it as a strategy. It began with the planting of tiny, almost microscopic seeds of doubt, always couched in the language of deep concern for me. It started with my best friend, Anya. The four of us, Anya, my other friend Jess, and I were inseparable. Anya was fiery, funny, and fiercely loyal. After an evening spent with her, Liam would sigh as we got into the car. "Anya's great," he would begin, the classic preamble to a criticism. "She's so full of energy." "Is she always that cynical about men, though? I just worry she projects her own bad experiences onto your relationship with me. I don't want her bitterness to affect how you see us." It was a brilliant move. He wasn't attacking her. He was worried about her influence on me. The first time, I defended her. "She's just protective, Liam. She's not bitter." But he was persistent. The next time I saw Anya, I found myself analyzing her words through his lens. Was that a cynical comment? Is she being negative? He had planted a filter in my mind. He did the same with Jess, who was a free-spirited artist. "I love how creative Jess is," he'd say. "But she seems a little flaky, doesn't she? Did she ever pay you back for those concert tickets? I just worry that people take advantage of your good nature." He made me feel like he was my sole protector, the only one who truly had my best interests at heart, while my oldest friends were somehow flawed or dangerous. The campaign against my family was even more insidious. My sister Rachel and I had always been each other's primary confidants. After a long phone call with her, where we'd laughed and gossiped and complained about work, Liam would look at me with a sad, concerned expression. "It sounds like Rachel is going through a lot," he'd say. "It must be so draining for you to have to be her therapist all the time. You absorb so much of her stress, Chloe. I can see it on your face. You need to protect your own energy." He was framing my relationship with my sister not as a source of support, but as a source of stress. He made her love feel like a burden. So I started calling her less. I kept my conversations with her more superficial, not wanting to drain myself or worry him. The daily phone calls became weekly, then monthly. The easy intimacy was replaced by a polite distance. I was pulling away from my own sister, and I thought I was doing it for my own mental health. In reality, I was severing my own lifeline. One thoughtful suggestion at a time. The next stage was to make any social interaction that didn't include him an exhausting ordeal. If I had plans to go to dinner with my friends, the day would be filled with a low-grade humming tension. He would be sullen and quiet. When I'd ask what was wrong, he'd say, "Nothing. I want you to have fun. It's just, the house feels so empty without you. I guess I'm just being selfish. Don't worry about me." He was a master of the guilt trip. He never forbade me from going. He just made the emotional price of leaving so high that it was often easier to stay. I started cancelling plans. "I'm so sorry. Something came up with Liam," became my constant refrain. At first, my friends were understanding. But after months of last-minute cancellations, they started to pull away. The invitations became less frequent. They thought I was choosing him over them. And in a way, I was. I was choosing the path of least resistance. The path that would avoid a conflict, a sulk, a guilt-inducing side-dot. Within 2 years. My vibrant, bustling world had been reduced to a quiet, isolated island for two. We had moved into a new house, in a suburb where I didn't know anyone. My old friendships were ghosts, maintained only through sporadic, superficial text messages. My contact with my family was limited to cheerful, bi-weekly phone calls where I would talk about our beautiful new home and how wonderful Liam was. A performance of happiness that felt increasingly hollow. My life revolved entirely around him. My schedule was his schedule. My moods were dictated by his moods. My reality was the reality he constructed for us. He would tell me stories about his colleagues, about conflicts at work, and I would take his side, not realizing he was curating the narrative, casting himself as the perpetual hero or victim. He was my only source of information, my only social interaction, my entire world, and it was so lonely. The silence in our beautiful house was deafening. I had a partner, but I had never felt more alone in my entire life. I had no one to talk to about my fears, my dreams, my simple daily frustrations. Liam had become my sole confidant. But how do you confide in your own zookeeper about the loneliness of the cage? The breaking point, the moment the walls of my prison became visible to me, was my 30th birthday. In my old life, my 30th would have been a massive celebration, a loud, joyful party surrounded by all the people I loved. Liam, of course, planned the entire day for me. He told me he was taking me on a surprise romantic getaway. He drove us 3 hours to a secluded, luxurious spa resort in the middle of nowhere. It was beautiful, serene, and completely isolated. There was no cell service. The weekend was filled with couples massages, candlelit dinners for two, and long, quiet walks where the only person I spoke to was him. On the surface, it was the height of romance. A grand gesture from a man who adored me. But as I sat across from him at dinner on the night of my birthday, in a near-empty, silent dining room, a wave of profound, soul-crushing sadness washed over me. I looked at this handsome, attentive man who had orchestrated this perfect romantic weekend, and I realized it wasn't for me at all. It was for him. It was a celebration of his success, a testament to his ability to create a perfect, hermetically sealed world with me at its center, completely cut off from anyone or anything that might threaten his total possession of me. My phone, useless for calls, was full of birthday messages from the life I no longer lived. Texts from friends I hadn't seen in a year. Voicemails from my sister and my parents, their cheerful voices sounding like they were coming from another planet. That night, after Liam was asleep, I lay in the dark of that luxurious, silent hotel room, and I cried. I cried for the loss of my friends. I cried for the distance I had created with my family. I cried for the vibrant, connected, known woman I used to be. The isolation was no longer a quiet, creeping fog. It was a solid, suffocating wall. And I knew, with a certainty, that was both terrifying and electrifying, that I had to find a way to break it down. The journey back was not a single, dramatic escape. It was a series of small, terrifying acts of rebellion. It began with a phone call. The day after we got back from my birthday getaway, I was at the grocery store alone. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone, but I dialed. My sister's number. When she answered, her voice was full of surprised delight. "Chloe. Hi. I was starting to think you'd forgotten about us." "I haven't," I whispered into the phone, hiding in the dairy aisle. "Rachel, I think I'm in trouble." Telling her was like opening a floodgate. The carefully constructed facade of my happy life crumbled, and I told her everything. The subtle manipulations, the guilt trips, the way he had slowly, methodically cut everyone out of my life. She didn't judge me. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just listened. And when I was done, she said the words that became my mantra for the next year. "We're coming to get you. Just tell us when." It took another 6 months to untangle myself. Liam had woven our lives together so tightly that leaving felt like a complex surgical procedure. But with my sister as my secret ally, I began to make a plan. I started responding to my friends. Texts again, slowly, cautiously reopening those old lines of communication. I met Jess for a secret coffee, an act that felt as dangerous and thrilling as espionage. Seeing her, hearing about her life, laughing with her, was like finding a hidden spring in the middle of a desert. It reminded me of who I was. The final confrontation with Liam was not explosive. It was quiet and all the more devastating for it. I sat him down and told him I was unhappy, that I felt isolated and lonely. His reaction was exactly what I expected. He was bewildered. He was hurt. "But I've given you everything," he said, his voice full of genuine confusion. "We have a beautiful life. I take care of you. I protect you. Why isn't that enough?" He truly didn't see it. He didn't see the walls of the cage he had built. Because for him, it wasn't a cage. It was his masterpiece. "It's not enough because it's not my life, Liam," I said, my voice clear and strong for the first time in years. "It's yours. And I am just a guest in it. I want my own life back. The one with my family, and my friends, and my own thoughts." I left the next day. The process was painful, but I was not alone. My friends and family, the anchors I had been convinced to cut loose, were there. A human chain pulling me back to shore. It's been 2 years. My life is not as quiet as it was with Liam. It's loud now. It's filled with the happy chaos of dinner, parties, of long rambling phone calls with my sister, of weekends spent laughing with my friends. I had to travel to a desolate, lonely island to finally understand the profound, life-sustaining importance of connection. Healing from that kind of isolation is about relearning how to take up space in the world, how to have needs and a voice and relationships that are your own. It's about rebuilding your own personal tapestry, and understanding that its beauty comes not from a single perfect thread, but from the rich, complex, and sometimes messy interweaving of all the different loves of your life. My fortress is no longer a man. It's my community. And it is a fortress he could never, ever breach. The first few months after I left Liam were a blur of reconnection. It was a dizzying, emotional homecoming. My sister Rachel had wrapped me in a fierce, protective embrace, setting me up in her spare room. My friends, Anya and Jess, descended upon me with the loving force of a rescue team, bearing takeout, terrible movies, and the easy, uncomplicated laughter I hadn't realized my soul was starving for. I had escaped the silent, isolated island of my life with Liam, and I had been pulled back onto the loud, vibrant, welcoming shore of my real life. For a while, that was enough. The sheer relief of being known, of being seen, of being surrounded by love was a powerful anesthetic for the deeper wounds. I was safe, but I quickly learned that there is a vast, complicated territory between being safe and being healed. I was living with Rachel, and she treated me with a gentle kid-glove care. She made me breakfast. She did my laundry. She'd ask, "What do you want for dinner?" And when I'd stare at her with the blank, decision-paralyzed eyes of a long-term prisoner, she would just smile sadly and say, "Don't worry, I'll figure it out." My friends did the same. They would plan our evenings, choose the restaurant, order the wine. "You just show up and relax, Chloe," Jess would say. "You've had enough on your plate. Let us take care of you." They were trying to give me a soft place to land. They were trying to remove every burden, every stressor from my life. Their intentions were pure gold, but they didn't realize that in his world, being taken care of was the first step toward being controlled. Having decisions made for me, even out of love, felt eerily, sickeningly familiar. I was free, but I was still acting like a captive. I had become so accustomed to having no say in my own life that I had forgotten how. My voice, which I thought I was ready to reclaim, remained dormant, lost in a fog of gratitude and a deep, buried fear of taking up space. The turning point came about 6 months after I left Liam. My friends, in a brilliant burst of loving enthusiasm, decided we needed to reclaim a piece of our shared history. "Remember our annual girls' weekend?" Anya announced one night. "The trip you always used to plan with military precision. We're doing it. We're going to that little coastal town we always loved. And you, Chloe, are in charge. It will be just like old times. It will help you feel like yourself again." A part of me was thrilled. The old Chloe, the planner, the decisive one, I missed her. I wanted her back. I threw myself into the planning, but it felt wrong. I would find the perfect little cottage to rent, but then a wave of anxiety would wash over me. What if they don't like it? What if it's too expensive? What if I make the wrong choice? I would send them 3 or 4 options, unable to commit, and they would inevitably just pick one for me. "They're all great, Chloe. Let's just do this one." Every decision I deferred to them felt like a small failure, a confirmation of my own brokenness. The weekend arrived. The car ride was filled with the kind of easy, overlapping chatter I had missed so much. But once we got there, a strange and terrible thing began to happen. I felt myself disappearing again. At dinner, when they asked what I was in the mood for, I would just say, "Oh, anything is fine with me." When they debated between going for a hike or going to the beach, I would offer no opinion. "Whatever you guys want to do is great," I'd say with a bright, false smile. The truth was, I had no idea what I wanted. My own preferences were buried under years of rubble, and the act of trying to excavate them felt so monumental, so fraught with the possibility of making the wrong choice and displeasing someone, that it was easier to have no preference at all. On the second day, the crisis came over something laughably small. We were deciding where to go for lunch. Jess wanted seafood. Anya wanted Italian. They both turned to me, the tiebreaker. "Chloe, what's your vote?" Anya asked. I froze. My mind went completely blank. I could feel their expectant eyes on me. It was such a simple question, but it felt like I was being asked to solve an impossible equation. I could feel the familiar anxiety rising in my chest, the fear of disappointing one of them, of making the wrong call. I don't mind," I stammered. Either one is fine. Jess threw her hands up in exasperation, but it was a friendly frustration. Oh my God, Chloe, just pick one. You used to be the most decisive person I know. Don't worry, we won't hate you if you pick the wrong place. Her words were meant to be a light-hearted nudge, but they landed like a physical blow. The wrong place, the wrong choice. A switch flipped in my brain. Suddenly, I wasn't there with my friends. I was in my old living room, with Liam asking me what I wanted to watch, and me knowing that whatever I said would be met with a subtle sigh of disapproval, until I finally just said, "You know what? You pick. Whatever you want." I couldn't breathe. I mumbled something about needing some air, and walked out of our rental cottage, leaving them staring after me in confusion. I walked down to the beach, the cold wind whipping at my face, and I just stood there, staring at the grey, churning ocean. I was surrounded by the people I loved most in the world, and I had never felt more isolated. They were trying to love a version of me that no longer existed, and in their loving attempt to put me back together, they were accidentally using the very same tools that had broken me. Later that evening, there was a soft knock on my bedroom door. It was Rachel, my sister, who had driven down to join us for the last night. She came in and sat on the edge of the bed. She didn't say anything. For a long time. "You're not here, Chloe," she finally said, her voice soft. "You're physically here with us, but the real you is a million miles away. Talk to me. What's really going on?" And finally, I told her the truth. Not the story of what Liam did to me, but the story of what it had done to me. "I don't know how to be me anymore," I whispered, the words feeling foreign and shameful. "You guys keep saying you want the old Chloe back, but I don't think she exists. And every time you try to help me, it just reminds me of what I lost. When you make decisions for me, even about something as stupid as lunch, it feels like I have no voice. It feels like he's in the room. I know it's not rational. I know you're just trying to be kind. But it makes me feel powerless all over. Again. And I'm so scared that this is just who I am now. A person who doesn't have a preference. A person who doesn't have a vote." Rachel listened, her expression full of a dawning, heartbroken understanding. She had thought she was helping me heal, when in fact, she had been inadvertently pressing on the deepest part of the wound. The next morning, Rachel gathered Anya and Jess in the living room. I stayed in my room, but I could hear their hushed voices. I heard my sister explaining, patiently, what I was going through. I heard Jess's sharp intake of breath. I heard Anya whisper, "Oh my God, we had no idea." When I finally emerged, the atmosphere was different. It was full of a new, careful tenderness. "Okay," Anya said. Her usual boisterous energy softened. "New plan for the day. Everyone gets 1 hour to do whatever they want, completely alone. And then we meet back here for lunch. And Chloe," she said, looking at me with eyes full of love and a new respect, "you are in charge of deciding where we order takeout from. And we will wait as long as it takes for you to decide." No pressure. It was a small gesture, but it was everything. The rest of the trip was different. They started asking my opinion. They started making space for my hesitation. They stopped trying to fix me and just started being with me. The new, quieter, more uncertain version of me. My healing wasn't just about escaping my abuser. That was only the first step. The real journey was about navigating my way back to myself, and about teaching the people I loved how to know and love the person I had become. It was about learning that my voice, even if it was shaky and uncertain, was still worth listening to. A few months after that trip, I moved into my own apartment. It was a small, quiet act of profound significance. My sister and my friends helped me, but they let me lead. I chose the paint colors. I decided where the furniture would go. I was the architect of my own space. Last week, I planned a trip. A small one, just for myself. A weekend in a small town I'd always wanted to visit. I booked the hotel. I made a list of the cafes and bookstores I wanted to see. I did it all myself, and I felt not a flicker of anxiety, only a quiet, thrilling sense of anticipation. As I was packing, my sister texted me, "What are you up to?" I smiled as I typed my reply, "Just being myself." And I realized, with a sense of profound, peaceful clarity, that I finally was.